Hey, how you doing? Jacob just made me laugh a little bit, but this is no laughing matter, actually. You have a picture on the screen there of the Miami Mike diet, and I'll give you a little bit more background in a few minutes, but 5 years ago I went from feeling like I was waddling like a duck to now, after losing 60 pounds in 2 years, and in the last 3 years, keeping it off. That's the important part, real important. They're both important parts. We're going to talk about my philosophy and how it differs from big business, big medical establishment, and especially the United States government, the USDA food pyramid charts that affect us and our families and have forever, virtually. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to change screens here in just a second, and you'll see a little bit more of Mike's story. Alrighty then, you should have a Mike Story graphic up there on your screen, and we'll talk about that a second, but as you can read through it, again, my feeling as far as having been way overweight, obese technically, to just a little bit overweight still, but I'm proud of the not only the weight I've lost, but the psychology part of it as far as feeling better about myself. Most importantly, my biomedical levels, my blood levels. I'm age 65 now, and I started this program at age 60, 5 years ago, as I mentioned. But my blood levels are better than they were when I was age 30. So I'm doing something right, and I've started exercising again. I was able to do this, if you read the Mike Story from beginning to end there. I basically did this without breaking a sweat. So we're going to get to the food pyramid chart next, so hold on just a second. Next picture up on the on your screen basically is my before and after real life, and I think you can see from top to bottom of this film that I'm looking at, or picture, that I'm looking rather depressed and not as happy as I should be 5 years ago, and rightfully so. The picture on the right, I'm basically not only thinner, I consider myself even better looking as far as 5 years older in this picture, but most importantly happy in my skin. And now I'm going to tell you my story as far as how it differs from what you've heard from the aforementioned big business, big medical, and the United States government. So hold on. I hope you enjoy the ride. One of my favorite beverages, filtered water, spring water that is filtered through my house, but and organic coffee, but that's just trying to stay relaxed while I tell you my story here. So hopefully you have the pyramid, the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, pyramid, the food that they suggested, 2005. Take a quick look here. We're going to circle the bottom level, tier 4 at the bottom. And to me, it's ludicrous that the USDA is expecting us, or what's the right word? Not expecting, but recommending, that's it. Recommending that we eat 6 to 11 servings of carbohydrates. So they want to make that our most substantial part of the diet. What I'm looking at is basically white processed bread, noodles, other carbohydrates that are going to be detrimental to your health and weight. So at the top of their pyramid, basically, and I agree with part of this, the sweets, but not the fats and the oils. You'll see that, and the reasons why things have changed dramatically over the last 10 years. Fruits and vegetables, their second one. I'm not real big on vegetables and fruits as much as some people are, and I'll tell you why. The milk, yogurt, and cheese, not too bad as far as with also the protein on the right, the third level down, the meat, the poultry, etc. But we're going to go skip ahead to their 2015 pyramid and see how it differs 10 years later, and explain more in just a second. Okay, new chart up on the screen, 2015 USDA. And we're going to see these side by side in just a second, but basically nothing's changed except for the graphics. So I'm going to go ahead and switch screens here real quickly, and you're going to see them side by side. So that's 2005 on the left, 2015 on the right. Same recommendations, a lot of servings of carbohydrates, and then the other things that we discussed. Basically the only thing that changed is they made it simpler as far as the text, but look at the graphics. The bottom is like a bunch of noodles hanging around a loaf of bread that you can hardly tell it's bread on the left side there. So still I consider severely wrong. So what we want to do, and what my suggestion is, and you can run this by your medical practitioner, your healthcare practitioner, is turn this pyramid upside down, and I'll give you the reasons why. But this is going to be the what of the Miami Mike diet, and my pyramid will be next. Hold on, we'll be right back. Alrighty, the Miami Mike diet pyramid, and here's my suggestions to you. We'll again give you the reasons why and the what of this diet. Basically, from eating the most on tier 4, we've got sizzling bacon on the left, and then steaks and chicken, salmon, coconut oil, and the eggs, and that's flaxseed at the bottom right there. So what we're talking about basically is organic meats, grass-fed poultry, the wild-caught fish, using coconut oil and butter to cook with. We're talking about the good, healthy oils, and more explanation there in a minute. And on the right-hand side, we're talking about all of this not only being the sources from raw milk and dairy, if allowed by state law. I'm going to show you a chart there in just a second. But we want these to be organic, grass-fed, and or pastured. These are the sources. And the key to my diet is source and preparation. So first, the source, and going up the chart here, as far as on the left-hand side, tier 3, the organic milk, butter, cheese, and cream. Fat is back. Just about everyone is suggesting that a good healthy fat is essential to your diet, essential to your well-being. And we'll talk more about the source of that fat in a second. Less important to me specifically are the vegetables, but what I do get is organic vegetables. The same with the, as far as the grains, the agriculture that we'll be talking about. It's always multigrain bread, hopefully with seeds and sprouts and things like that. Organic rice, potatoes, but the key there is bread. You'll see me eating some sandwiches in the video on the how-to as far as the grocery list and that I'm suggesting to you people. And on the top tier, the least important, the least consumed products should be sweets. If they are, they should be organic in nature or organic in source. The exception I make for fruits is organic fruits, but especially Granny Smith apples. And I'll be discussing more reasons why, and we'll go to the next screen here. Alrighty, back again with the new chart, black and white here, and we'll have some color back in a minute, but I'm using the pyramid here to describe the what. And at the very top, and basically, whether you consider God, which is my acronym is Great Original Designer, whether you want to consider God the source of all, which I do, or you can discuss or think Mother Nature or evolution, Darwinism, that type of thing. But in nature, this is the 3 do's on the left-hand side, 3 don'ts on the right-hand side. And as you can see there, I have an acronym called PAD. I think of it as a launching pad for your diet, for your health. And basically, P is for protein or primal meats that we're discussing. A is for agriculture. D for dairy, of course, that we saw in the previous screen. The 3 don'ts. This needs a little bit more explanation. This is where the USDA and big business and the corporate food industry wants us to keep eating the processed food that is so terrible for our health. But basically, you have the don'ts as far as trans fats, and this includes hydrogenated oils. And we'll discuss more of that in a minute here too. But that's the first big no-no. The second one is high fructose corn syrup. And the third one is GMO, genetically modified organisms. And that's you'll see on the next screen, that's the latest in our history of processed food that we don't want you consuming. It's making you obese, unhealthy. Life expectancy will be going down because of this. Our new generation of kids already have a lower life expectancy than the previous generation. First time in history, modern history. So we'll go to the next screen here and get some color back in our shots here on the screen. Alrighty, back again, Miami Mike, and we've added some color on the text here on the pyramid, and basically what we want to talk about is the history of what I'm suggesting for the do's, the 3 do's, the power of 3, is the primal meats, the protein in my diet and mankind's history goes back conceivably over 1 million years. It's what our body is used to, and I have no trouble with the philosophy of our great original designer making us that way, our digestive tract, the way we eat with our teeth, all of that good stuff, but mainly how our health and weight is affected. The agriculture, it's been around a lot less, 15,000 years. Basically grain, and you're hearing a lot about why no grain and gluten and things like that, and it's not part of my belief at all. The last part of the history is recent history, and it happens to be our worst part, especially in American history. That's in the last 100 years or so, and again, what we've already talked about as far as the trans fat, the high fructose corn syrup, and the GMOs. But basically, with the onset of refrigeration, we can do a lot of things in my diet that you couldn't do over 100 years ago. Basically, on the right-hand side, the history of the don'ts. We're talking about the trans fats started 100 years ago plus, 40 years ago as far as the sugary high fructose corn syrup, and then very recently, 20 years or more, for the GMO, genetically modified or engineered food. We'll go to the next screen. Your lower right-hand part of the screen has a couple new notes as far as the history of the trans fats. We started with, basically, there's a couple others, but Crisco is the biggest name. That's an acronym for crystallized cottonseed oil. So that's still around. Trans fats in general are supposed to be wiped off the books, making it illegal 3 years from now. This is 2015. I'll believe it when I see it, but again, 100 years of history of trans fats that are terrible for your health and weight. Vegetable oils are included in those. As well as margarine. So again, we recommend coconut oil and butter as far as cooking and consuming. Basically, high fructose corn syrup, the soda, the cookies, the chips, most of the processed things, especially packaged goods in your typical food and pharmacy grocery store, are going to have high content of high fructose corn syrup. Lastly, basically we're talking about the genetically modified. Corn and soy are in approximately 95% of the products of packaged goods, and that includes most grocery stores. We're going to talk about the exceptions. So I'll see you in a minute on the next slide. Okay, a new acronym here, CRAP. At the center stage on the pyramid. That's my acronym for chemically restructured all products. What we were just talking about in a normal grocery store, the food and pharmacy. When you start to think non-organic, the processed food, one of the biggest things you can take away from this little presentation is the fact that it's not just your fast food drive-ins, it's your grocery store, your restaurants. These are all crap. They're chemically restructured, all the products. So you have to be real careful. And what I've developed here, eating more at home, just about exclusively at home, can be easily accomplished and well worth the weight loss, the longevity, and the health, again. So for short, we're calling this chemical food, and we're going to go quickly to the next slide. All right, what we have here on this screen is my first quote from a well-known name from Dr. Robert Atkins from the famous Atkins diet that is still around in the low-carbohydrate diet. He was appalled, by the way, of this type of thinking as far as the USDA recommending mostly carbohydrates in your diet. It's absolutely insane, and I hope you can see the reasons behind that already. But anyway, on your screen, basically, is he identified in one of his first books back in the 70s and 80s on a rewrite that most of our modern problems in every society, not just here in the United States, comes when the processed sugar, flour, etc. is first introduced. The white stuff, the bad white stuff, is first introduced into society. One generation, 20 years into that, we have a prevalence of obesity, heart disease, cancer, metabolic syndrome, the list goes on and on. So basically, he establishes enough proof that it's not just our society, but primitive societies that get this processed food. So it goes back over 100 years. Next screen, I have real quickly up there the supplements that I use. Basically, we're talking about coconut oil primarily, and that's for consumption and cooking. We're talking about vitamin D, a very simple little pea-sized vitamin that you take every day. And that dosage, I'll make my recommendations, but you and your healthcare practitioner need to decide on a dosage for you. It's great for weight loss. It's vitamin D is considered the miracle vitamin. It's more than a vitamin. It's more of a hormone. You'll learn that in my program. And lastly, flaxseed. I consume it for fiber just about every day, and I'll let you know why. I just went on to the next screen. As far as I have a bunch of these. As far as fat is where it's at. Fat is back in our diet, and I'm going to go into the reasons a little bit more, but this is just a recent time headline as far as eating real butter and why we're going to end the war on fat and get back to the good healthy fats, and again, it'll come from the source. So I'm going to take a little pause here for the next screen and wrap this up in just a moment. All right, you should have the state-by-state review of milk laws, the dairy, the D part of the PAD of the central 3 do's of my diet. Big part of what I do is raw milk, raw dairy, and that goes from the milk, the butter, the cheeses, etc. So look on the chart for your state, and the good thing about this is that I only identify 4 or 5 states that have laws prohibiting raw dairy. So I have some links for you that I will include in this presentation as far as learning more about raw dairy. But basically, pasteurization is going to kill all the enzymes, the good bacteria, everything about what's good for dairy. Homogenization is actually almost worse. What they do is they spin the milk, and this is for longevity of the milk so it doesn't spoil. But homogenation actually changes the molecular structure of the dairy, of the milk. So basically, that goes back to the CRAP, chemically restructured. Anything that changes the molecular structure, like homogenization, like GMOs, that's going to be in the big no-no for the diet that I suggest. It's chemical food, not real food. So let me wrap this up again with my pyramid. I'm going to switch screens here, and this is the essence of it. I'm going to add a little bit more as far as the videos that you can see on this site right now. But basically, we're going to start with a grocery list of the recommendations that I have for breakfast and lunch menus. So a way to get quickly started at the right type of grocery store in my area here, south of Miami, it's Whole Foods, and hopefully you have a good organic type of grocery store of healthier foods that you can implement this grocery list. I'm going to suggest for about $100 you can get enough for enough breakfasts and lunches for this week coming up, and the source of the 3 supplements are included. So I encourage you to become TWA. That's the thin, the wellness, the ageless, which is anti-aging, that this diet can provide for you. It's done so for me. I've kept the weight off. I feel healthy. I want to do the same thing and suggest and hopefully modify your life too. Let's go to the next video below this, pyramid presentation and get started on Mike's list for healthy shopping right now. See you soon.